Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a special edition of the Meet JMT podcast. My name is Jennifer, and I am your host and digital marketing manager here at JMT. During this multi-part series, we will be diving into a topic that has deeply impacted many of our employee owners, the recent hurricane named Helene that swept through western North Carolina and the surrounding region. In this episode, we'll be sharing the first-hand accounts of our Asheville, North Carolina employees and how this natural disaster changed their lives, both on a personal and professional level, as well as the incredible strength that has emerged from this challenging experience. Our hope is to not only highlight the difficulties faced, but also the sense of community and support that has blossomed in its wake.
My name is Nioma Lawson, and I'm a project accountant in the Asheville office. On that Friday morning after the hurricane, of course, we woke up to really strong winds. The storms were terrible. Our house is lined with trees, so I was so worried about those trees falling, and I knew that my son had the same problem. His house was completely surrounded with trees. I was able to get a text out to my team lead that morning to let her know, hey, our power just went off. I don't know what else is going to happen, but put me on PTO for today. Not knowing how horrific it was around us completely. So we have one son who lives locally, and then we have a son who lives in Virginia and one who lives in Tennessee. So I was able to get in touch with him that morning, and he told me he had a tree fall, but nothing had fell on his house yet. So he, thought everything was fine. So later in the morning, we lose power, we lose cell phone service. And at that point, it's just quiet and weird and just all the sounds of the storm. And later in the day, the sun came out. It was a beautiful day. And my husband and I were supposed to go to Indianapolis that weekend. And we thought, looking in our neighborhood, it doesn't look bad. Of course, we didn't know anything about the outside of our neighborhood at the time. But let's go ahead and take our trip. And we're going to have power. We're going to have cell phone service and all these things. But after we got out of our neighborhood, it was like a war zone. I mean, it was something you just can't explain. I mean, it was tree after tree down, power lines everywhere. We tried to go one way, but the road was flooded. We tried to go another way. The road was flooded. I mean, water we'd never seen in these places ever before. So then we decided to try to get to our son's house to make a good check on him. And we go and we pull up to his driveway. We can't even get in his driveway. It was tree after tree. So we trekked through some other people's property down a mountain to get to his house just to make sure that he was okay and just actually put eyes on him, because on our way there, we saw all the flooding, how terrible it was. And so he was fine. And he says, I'm good. And so we're like, okay, well, we're still going to take this trip. This is where we're going to be. We don't think this is going to last that long. You don't think about cell phone outages being for long periods of time. And so we tried to leave North Carolina, but had no idea you couldn't. There was no way out of North Carolina because in Tennessee, there was 2 roads that were completely destroyed. They weren't passable. So we came back home. And then we were like, we weren't even prepared food-wise. We didn't stock up on any kind of food. We didn't have water, ice, those kind of essentials. But we figured, it's still going to be okay. We had no contact with the world to know what was going on. And then later that day, we found a radio in our house and there was one radio station in North Carolina, WWNC, and those guys stayed on the air for days giving people information. And that's when we realized how horrific everything was. And everything was closed. You couldn't buy gas. You couldn't go to grocery stores. Of course, there was no power at the time, but when power did come back on, all the essentials that you needed, you really couldn't get because, if you needed gas, you would wait hours and hours in line to even get gas if you did. And then if you may not get it at all. So one of our sons used to work in that industry. And I was just like, everybody's panicking. Let's just give it a few days and it'll come back. But our main thing was we got to get some food. We got to get water and those kinds of things. Then our power did come back on Sunday, so we knew grocery stores would be open. We went out early Sunday morning and found a grocery store. And when we got there, I mean, it was complete chaos. It was packed and everybody was just grabbing what they could get. And that's basically what we did too. It was cash only. Thankfully, we had cash. A lot of people didn't have cash, but we stood in line for like almost 2 hours just to pay for the groceries. That's how many people were in the store. But we were thankful, and thankfully we didn't have any kind of damage to our home. It was just the unknowns of what was happening, because then shortly after that, we lost water. So it was just scary, just in the silence of everything. We started getting together with neighbors in our neighborhood because everybody was just so emotional. I mean, it was awful. So we were leaning on each other. We were going to each other's homes and just getting together and trying to make light of the situation, because the stories that we were hearing on the radio was awful. I mean, we all sat for days and just cried and just tried to console each other. We had no way to contact our moms to let them know we were okay, and our other sons and our siblings to let them know as well. And so finally, one of my neighbors, her father-in-law, had came to her house, and he said, "I have phone service." And he said, "Me and my wife have phone service. You all keep this phone here so you can get in touch with your families and your jobs and all that you need to do." And so that made things so much better, to be able to tell our families we're okay and to know that they were okay. So that was the first part of it. And it was just like, I mean, it's still so emotional to go back and think about being cut off from the world. You don't think with everything we have today, you never think that you're going to pick up your phone and it's not going to work. I mean, we're so used to being glued to it. I mean, that's our lifeline. And then when we didn't have that, it was so scary. And then just to hear all the National Guard helicopters flying over constantly. I mean, you literally feel like you're in a war zone at that time, because it was constant. And just at night when you try to sleep, you can't sleep because it's so dark and so quiet, and your mind just will not let you rest. And a lot of my neighbors were experiencing the same thing. I mean, you'd be up for so many hours that you were just it was just a terrible experience. And I'd say this, as emotionally as it was for me, I'm still very grateful and thankful, because I know a lot of people lost family. They lost their whole life, and it's never going to be the same. I mean, we're never going to be the same after this. I mean, it's going to take a long time before people even start to recover emotionally. And just our city and our county itself, it's going to be a long time. Our sons are good, and our moms were good, and our siblings, they live in, like I said, my mom lives in Kentucky, and my husband's lives in Virginia. And that's where a lot of his family lives. But we have a son who lives in Virginia and one in Tennessee. It was a week later when we finally got cell service back. I'm so thankful for everything that we do have, and the things don't matter, but our families are precious and mean everything to us. And we were without water for 20 days. And I think what a small inconvenience that was compared to what everybody else went through. And so anytime I thought, well, this is crazy that we're living like this in 2024, I still had to remind myself to be grateful and not be a complainer, because things could have been so much worse. We're very thankful that we were in the place that we were in, and we continue to pray for all of those who have lost so much, and pray for people who've lost their jobs, their homes. I mean, some have lost both, Immediately, the churches, all the local churches sprung into action, and they had supplies, cooking meals. My church in particular, Trinity Baptist Church, became a hub for the National Guard and recovery efforts for those people. I think it was like 120 people. They cleared out our main sanctuary, set up cots, and 120 people plus their dogs stayed at our church for over a month. And our church fed them 3 hot meals a day. They provided showers for the community. They provided laundry service for the community. They even had 2 wells drilled on the church property so that they would have water that would be accessible to give to people. And they were inundated with supplies to the point that they had to quit taking them. It was amazing to see all these trucks and people from Kentucky, Tennessee, Virginia. I mean, all over, literally from all over the United States, people brought supplies here to the point that they had to quit taking them. I mean, they couldn't take anymore. That's how gracious everybody was. Even farmers, seeing all the hay bales arrive for all the animals and feed for animals. You don't even think about things like that, but it's necessary. I mean, because we have a lot of farmers around. But there were so many other things. People were nice. I mean, you'd run into somebody in a grocery store. Nobody cared to wait. It's like all the little nuances that you face, things that aggravate you so easily, just seem to disappear. And everybody was just like, let's help each other. Let's do what we can for each other. Let's get through this. And it was amazing to see. And like I said again, those guys on that WNC radio and girls, just them being there to give us information was amazing, because all of the areas that we couldn't see, you didn't have television because we didn't have internet. You just had no way of getting information. So I'm so thankful for those guys. And if I could get them some kind of award, I would do it, because they definitely deserve it. And then, of course, my JMT family. When I was able to get phone service back, and my phone, I started getting texts from JMT that was telling us, you don't have to worry about your job, which I had already talked to my team lead, and she had already told me, don't worry, just focus on you, your family. That's your main priority right now. But to see that they were sending out text and they were letting us know that, hey, we're getting supplies to your office, and, you need to get there on this day and get this stuff, and to know, our Middlesboro, Kentucky office, Knoxville, Tennessee office, and then JMT as a whole. And when they said supplies, water and things that we needed, I had no idea when I walked into our office and saw what had been delivered. It was unbelievable. I mean, it literally just took my breath away. I mean, and my granddaughter was with me, and I started to cry. And of course, she told everybody I cried. And it was just so heartwarming to know that how fast they sprung into action and got us things that we didn't have access to was absolutely amazing. And it just really goes to show that we are truly a JMT family. And if somebody didn't know that before, I hope they recognize and know it now. We need to continue to stay strong. We're not going to see a change happen overnight, but I hope that people will continue to have faith and believe that there will be a change. Our community will rebuild, and we're all going to work hard to see that happen. And again, I just want to express my deep appreciation to my JMT family for being there in our time of need, and for making it so abundantly clear that we truly are a family and that we will always have each other's backs.
Thank you for tuning in to another Meet JMT podcast, where we explored Hurricane Helene's impact on our JMT employees and their remarkable resilience. We hope this episode is a powerful reminder that while we can prepare for many things, we can never fully anticipate the unexpected. As we reflect on the strength and the unity shown during these challenging times, let us embrace these experiences and continue to support one another. Stay safe, stay connected, and we'll see you next time.